So, Donald Trump speaking, the first round of interviews. With us now is Jack Holland, Associate Professor in International Relations at the University of Leeds. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think what we're seeing here, perhaps, is an attempt at being more presidential, putting behind almost the ugliness of the campaign. Can we expect more of this from Donald Trump?
I think so. I think Donald Trump is already tacking from being candidate to being president-elect. And fortunately, the Founding Fathers saw him coming, so there's a very robust division of powers, and there'll be important constraints on what he can and can't do as president, which is important because this is not a normal candidate, this is not a normal president-elect, and we shouldn't rush to normalise his presidency. So those checks and balances are going to be really important, and hopefully he will continue to tone down some of the campaign rhetoric, because there are things he simply won't be able to do once he's in office.
So what's important there is to have the right people around you prepared to speak their mind and maybe challenge you from time to time. If I draw your attention to the picture behind us there, and I think we can see this full screen as well, the people who he had around him for this first set of interviews are his immediate family, and they're also going to be directly involved in some of the handover process. Now, on the face of it, maybe that's how we look at it over here, feels a bit odd.
It does. I think there are aspirations that some of the people Donald Trump will surround himself with won't just be his family, won't just be people from business, but will be people with a background in running the country. And that might mean a return of some of the key staff from the Bush Jr. administration and previous Republican administrations. There are a few that haven't disavowed Donald Trump that he can work with. And I think there's hope that these big beasts of the Republican Party might come in and actually rein him back a little bit.
And what would that do for his credibility as well? I mean, I'm thinking Rudy Giuliani, experience as of course, as a mayor of New York. There are people that the country needs to see who are experienced, because this is a man who hasn't been in the military, he's never held public office, and he's running the country.
Well, that's exactly it. And the closest historical parallel might be George W. Bush, who came in with relatively little experience, actually very little experience in foreign policy and in military affairs. He knew a bit about Mexico and not a lot else. So he needed these large figures around him. He needed, yes.
And this is what's interesting as well, because at the moment it's domestic policy that he's taken a look at. So Obamacare, he's rode back a little bit on how much of that he's going to bring down after his conversation, with Barack Obama, that he'd taken a different view on this. But foreign policy, I mean, we've seen such a wide reaction to his election.
Yeah.
That's going to be very interesting moving forward.
Yeah, there are certain things that he will be able to do and certain things he won't be able to do, and a number of his foreign policy statements are already being rowed back on. He's already U-turned on South Korea. It's probable the wall will never be built, it won't be funded. He probably doesn't need to build the wall. He can blame someone else for not building the wall, and his base will lap that up. In domestic policy, there are things he will get done. He will have tax cuts, we will have infrastructure spending, there will be reform of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, it might become Trump Care potentially. So he will go after those things that a Republican Congress will like, that will get through, and a Republican Senate as well. It will be things closer to the core of the Republican Party and less of those more wildcard things he said on the campaign trail.
So many observers in the election battle itself got things wrong. Let's be honest, lots of people got things wrong. One of the things that I think probably is true, and people are saying now is certainly true, is when you become president, it is completely different from when you're trying to be president. And people are saying these are the first indicators in these interviews that the Donald Trump president is not going to be the beast, the kind of the one who chucked things out there, who shot from the hip. It'll be different.
He will still be Donald Trump, and that unpredictability is part of his personality, and sometimes it is a deliberate thing as well. He thinks that unpredictability is how you win. It keeps people off balance. It's how you succeed in a negotiation, for example. So I think the unpredictability won't disappear, but it will be tempered and moderated because of the constraints and limits on what a president can do. The executive has been set up with limited power precisely in case a figure like Donald Trump ever became president. So the Founding Fathers fortunately had that foresight, and he will have to temper what it is he can actually do. And I think his language is already tacking to that of president-elect rather than someone running for the presidency.
Exciting times, though, nevertheless.
Exciting and worrying. As I've said, we mustn't normalise this. This is a candidate who said abhorrent things on the campaign trail, but he's going to be president, and it's a case of hoping those checks and balances keep him in line, and that the people around him advise him sufficiently such that he knows America has certain obligations on the world stage, and there are certain things domestically that a president just can't do. The Supreme Court will overrule him, for example.
It's been interesting talking to you, Jack. Thanks very much, Dr. Jack Holland there.
Let's see, time now is 18